Okay, welcome to the podcast today. I am Megan Hillier, a professional genealogist and host of Know Your Ancestors. I just want to apologize. I have a bit of a cold, so my voice is not super great today, but I really wanted to get another episode out, so we're doing it. So I have been thinking a lot about what I do as a genealogist and primarily how I help other people do this themselves. I've been helping people through online courses for, 6 years now, helping people learn how to do this themselves, how to research their ancestors and learn about their ancestors. And it's kind of evolved over the years. But right now I am offering a course bundle for my 2 online courses, Know Your Family Tree and Know Your Ancestor. And you can get both of them for a discounted price of $297 until Sunday, so until November 30th. So I'm going to be talking a bit about why I teach people how to do this and why it matters. But I just wanted to say that up front that you can get my deal for these 2 online courses. I'm calling it the Rooted and Rising course bundle. You can get both of them for $297, and normally they're almost $500 if you buy them both separately. So this is a really good deal, and it's going to be ending on Sunday. So if you want to learn how to do this, that's the best way to do it. Now, the title of this episode is Why Most People Feel Disconnected from Their Family History and How to Change That. So there's a few reasons why people feel disconnected from their lineage. And number one is that we've been taught that genealogy is just names and dates. A lot of people think that genealogy is boring, and maybe rightfully so, because that's how they've been taught that it is. It's like, yes, you have your family tree, see who can go back the farthest, see if your family tree goes back to the 1600s, or see if you're related to royalty, or have some Indian princess in your family tree. Okay, there's kind of this idea that genealogy research is boring, and it doesn't really matter. So that's one reason that people feel disconnected from their lineage. Another is maybe they do want to learn about their ancestors, but they don't know how to start. It can feel really overwhelming how to start. There's so much information out there, and we may be afraid that we're going to do it wrong. Reason number 3 could be that we just don't know what we're looking for. Again, maybe we're like, well, I don't know how to research my ancestors back to the 1500s, so how am I going to do that? Or we assume that we need to have all of this information in place before we can even feel connected to our ancestors. But what we actually need is just one story, one person, one connection that can really help us feel more connected to our lineage. And then reason number 4 is that we have a bit of a emotional and spiritual disconnection from our ancestors. I think that there's more people talking about how our ancestors are still around us and can help us, but a lot of people are maybe hesitant to actually believe that, and maybe they just don't believe that, and that's fine. We were taught that our ancestors just lived their lives and now they're gone, and it's not really affecting us now. There's a disconnection there. They are still around us. Their lives affected us, and I think science is proving that now, that what happened to our ancestors does affect us. And so hopefully I'll give you some ideas of how you can become less disconnected, to actually feel connected to your lineage and feel the influence of your ancestors' lives. I've shared a lot of stories about times when I felt that, and I'm actually going to share a story that I haven't shared anywhere else because it just happened a couple weeks ago. So I know quite a bit about my second great grandfather, Isaac Sanford Fries. First of all, he has a cool name. I have shared about him on the podcast before. I actually did an episode where I talked about how he went to Calgary, Alberta in the late 1800s, and I shared how I mapped where he lived, and I tried to visit some of those places in Calgary. So I have shared about him on the podcast before, and a few weeks ago, I was listening to actually my own podcast episode when I shared the day 3 of Remember, that three-day series that I shared on the podcast that I did live too on Zoom. So I decided to listen to that episode as I went for my walk one day, and I was mostly just listening to it just to make sure it sounded okay. And I decided to keep listening and listen through the whole guided practice that I did at the end, where I help you envision an ancestor, think about something that you are struggling with right now, And then think of an ancestor that might have gone through something similar and kind of see how that can help you. So when I was doing that a couple weeks ago, I was kind of struggling in my business, feeling like, is this actually going to work? Can I be profitable? There was a few different stresses happening in my life. And as I was going through that guided meditation, that guided practice, I was thinking about my second great grandfather, Isaac Fries. Now, he was born in New Brunswick, Canada. The Fries line had been there since like the late 1600s, so they'd been out there for very long. And Isaac got it in his head that he was going to come out west. I'm sure that was, the time when they're talking about settling out west. He'd probably heard, ideas of how it was going to be successful out there, how it was this new territory, land was cheap, and all of these things. So he decided to go out west to kind of check it out before his wife and children came out to meet him. So he went out west. He was settled in Fort Calgary is what it was. And he soon opened up a store. So he was a merchant in New Brunswick. He decided to start that business in Alberta, it wasn't Alberta yet, but in Fort Calgary. So he opened up one of the first stores in Calgary, had to come with money and had to take risks, and he had a partner, and then they separated, and he believed in himself and he tried things and he was successful. And as I was on my walk and I was thinking about him, I was like, I need some of that energy in me. And I felt a connection to him in that moment. And I felt that I could tap into some of that strength from my second great grandfather, Isaac Fries, that he could help me to maybe feel more sure of myself in my own entrepreneurial spirit. And I think when I was thinking about him and his experience, I was like, did he know that it would work out? Probably not. Did he know that he would be successful? Probably not. Did he even know that this was what he wanted to do for sure? Probably not. But he took the next step. And he trusted. He even went on to join the gold rush to do that for a while. He actually sold a store, and then when did the gold rush, he had enough money to make that trip and found some gold. And just learning about him and his story helped me feel that I could keep going. So for you, if you don't know your ancestor story very well, or if you don't feel that connection, I'm going to give you 3 things that do create that connection that can help you on this journey. So the first is to learn some simple foundational research skills. So if you want to learn about your ancestors and you want to do it yourself, you need to learn how to research, right? You need to learn how to find this information. I recommend researching your close ancestors. You don't have to research those ancestors, your 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th great grandparents. I mean, you can, but I feel like you have a stronger connection to those ancestors that are closer to you. So learning how to research those close ancestors, knowing where to look, how to look for records. When I first wanted to start learning about my ancestors, wanted to do family history work, it was very overwhelming, because you don't know what you're doing. And so I went on to Family Search and I typed in my ancestor's name, Ralph Daniels. That was born about 1799, New Jersey. And that was pretty much all that we knew. We didn't know the names of his parents. I was like, okay, I'm going to find his parents. And so I put his name in there, put in his approximate birth date and location, and hit search. And then, there's hundreds, thousands of results that come up. So I was just scrolling through them and I'm like, okay, I'm going to find his parents. And of course I didn't. That's not how you do good genealogy work. So learning how to actually research, how to know what records exist, and then how to locate those records, that is the key to doing good genealogy research. And then understanding the records when you look at them, understanding census records, what you can actually find in them, and how to tell if a record is actually about your ancestor, if it's your Ralph Daniels and not some other Ralph Daniels, right? So all of these things can help us feel more connected. You actually have to know how to research. And then accepting that it's a slow process. I think when we first start, we think, first of all, it's overwhelming. It's kind of overwhelming because you have a lot of ancestors and you only have yourself, right? And so it feels a little daunting, like you want to learn about all of them. You want to research all of them. You want to verify everything. And that's just not going to happen, okay? So accept that it's a slow process, that meaningful relationships take time. With people, it takes time. With our ancestors, it takes time. And to go deeper and focus maybe on one ancestor for a few weeks, a few months, maybe even a whole year, learning all about them and really building a relationship with them. Second thing that you can do, so once you've learned how to do the research, now you can reflect and make it mean something. So maybe pause to wonder, like, what did they feel like when this happened to them, when their spouse died at age 40? What did they want in life? What was their occupation? How did they survive? Okay, maybe they immigrated somewhere, and why did they immigrate? You can ask these questions to try to build more meaning into their lives, into the information that you have about them. And then we can also look for patterns. Maybe we can find the origins of that pain or those patterns in your family tree. Maybe you come from a family that struggled with alcoholism. We can see maybe where some of that originated. Was there children that were abandoned? Was there abuse? Was there divorce? Was there early death? Things like that. We can see signs of that, and you can find those clues as you're looking deeper in the records and the information that you find. You can also find signs of resilience. We talked about this a bit in the last episode, to find signs of trauma and resilience in your ancestors' lives. So you can find those things as you're looking in these records and ask questions and make it mean something deeper. Did they have family support? Were they on their own? And seeing yourself in your lineage, seeing yourself in these lives of your ancestors. And I think even breaking down the simple facts and details of your ancestors' lives can provide meaning. I've talked before about my great-grandmother, who, when I was looking at the timeline of her life, I realized that she was about 5 months pregnant when her and my great-grandfather got married. So then I was like, what would that have been like for her? I know that she was a very religious person, and did other people know? What was that like? So little things like that, looking at the facts, but then making it mean something more, can help you feel more connected. Then the third thing is to take it even a step farther. And the third way to take it even a step farther is to integrate that and to feel a spiritual connection. So maybe that means journaling your impressions or your thoughts as you're learning about these ancestors, or walking or meditating with your ancestors on your mind. Or maybe it's even asking for their strength and support and guidance, letting their stories shift how you see your own life or the lives of your family. Maybe you're like, that's why my grandpa was so grumpy. Or maybe that's why I have this pattern of addiction in my family. Making those meanings. So first starting, finding the information, knowing how to research, asking the questions to make it go a little deeper, and then integrating it into your own life and thinking, how has their life affected me? So most people only ever do step one. Most genealogists maybe not most, a lot of genealogists only do step one. They're just focused on the facts, doing the research, building their family tree. But how much more can it mean when we take it a step farther, when we ask those questions, when we try to understand what their lives were like, and then a step farther than that, even thinking about how it affects us, how that changes us. So when we do all three of these things, there's a transformation that happens to you. You suddenly feel less alone. You have all of these people, all of these ancestors around you. How could you feel alone? You understand yourself in a deeper way. You feel supported. You see your family with more compassion. You start healing patterns because they're no longer hidden. You feel more grounded, rooted, and confident in who you are. You feel more belonging. Now, if you're listening and thinking like, I want this, but I don't know how to start, it just feels overwhelming. Like I said at the start, I have my course bundle, Rooted and Rising, that teaches you the practical how to research and then the emotional and spiritual side of connecting. It's made for beginners and those who feel stuck. Now, when I say it's made for beginners, it is made for beginners, but it also is made for researchers, people that have been doing this for a long time. be able to look at it in a different way. So why I called it Rooted and Rising is rooted is like the research, the fundamentals, the getting started, the finding clues. And then rising is the story making, the meaning, the connection, the patterns, the intuition. So together, they help you move through all those 3 steps, those 3 layers. So this current special pricing is $297 for both courses together, and this ends on Sunday, November 30th. If you want to sign up, you go to knowyourancestors.co/rooted-rising. The link is in the show notes, or you can just go to my homepage, and if you scroll down, it shows the courses and then the deal there. So go to knowyourancestors.co and you can find that information about joining this course bundle and getting that deal. So if you're feeling a little pull right now to learn more about your ancestors, I encourage you to pick one ancestor this week and just start exploring their story. Take it a little deeper, look at the facts, maybe do a little more research about them. Then start thinking about what their life was like. What was their day-to-day life like? And then take it an even step farther, maybe do some journaling and think, how would that life have affected me? What patterns might have been passed on to me? And if you want to have some help and support as you go through that process, be sure to get this course bundle, Rooted and Rising, by going to knowyourancestors.co/rooted-rising. All right. Thanks so much for being here this week, and we will see you next time.